Thank you for tuning back in to another episode of the Integrative Health Coach Success Podcast. We're back with a solo show to talk a little bit more about our discussion last time, focusing around some of the most common mental roadblocks that clients will face when it comes to getting success, right? Healing their gut, losing weight, balancing their hormones, getting their nervous system more rebalanced. Why do some clients have success? Why do some clients not? And what can be some of these most common mental roadblocks we talked about the last time? And this time I'm going to share a little bit about what you can do to help clients who are in one of these, 6 categories. So we talked about like the all or nothing mindset or limiting beliefs, and I'm going to touch upon each one and talk about how you can actually help the client with some strategies if this is where you think they're stuck. So let's get started. The first one that we talked about was that all or nothing mindset, right? If I can't do it perfectly, I shouldn't start it at all. Sometimes it can be that a client does nothing if they're thinking that they can't do it perfectly, or they are like that perfectionist tendency where they're having to do it just perfectly, and the stress alone is building a ton of resistance in their body. But the saying that I always love to use with clients is never let perfection be the enemy of progress. And what that means is if you're letting a perfect outcome stop you from starting at all, you're never going to make any progress at all, right? You have to get these clients around the concept of celebrating like small wins, right? So just moving one step further to the goal and being able to make small progressive movements is super important. Finding out like where this perfectionist tendency came from in the first place, right? Was that a way that they got praised when they were younger? Was that a way that, someone in their life who loved them viewed their self-worth, right? Did they have to be perfect? Did they have to hold it all together? Did they have to make, all A's, get 100s in order to be lovable, right? Sometimes it can be that things are like very deep rooted. But these perfectionist tendencies, I think, certainly can sometimes have a little bit of, it holds the client back from even starting at all. Because again, they think if I can't, do the full 12 weeks of the CBO protocol and do it perfectly, I'm just not going to start it at all. And they're waiting for the perfect time. There is none, like we talked about the last time, right? Yes, there's times where it can be better executed, it can make more sense for someone's lifestyle. But truly, we really don't want to wait on making progress, right? And waiting for the perfect time to do so. So sometimes it can be just as simple as helping, move your body for 10 minutes today. Right? Great. How easy was it to move your body for 10 minutes? Maybe the goal is to have that client walking for 30 minutes a day, but getting them to just do small steps each day towards that 30 minutes helps kind of reframe their mindset of, okay, I'm making progress. This doesn't have to be perfect. And reinforcing, right, those small wins allows them to see that as just as much good, right, as it's not perfect. It's not, perfection, but it is progress. And that is really where so much of the success with moving the health needle and wellness needle lies. Okay, so next is going to be the fear of failure or the fear of success, right? Self-sabotaging as a form of protection is really, really common, right? People sabotage relationships because they fear rejection or disappointment. But for a lot of people on a wellness journey, they can self-sabotage health and wellness goals as a form of protection. Like if I start and try and don't succeed, I'm going to be disappointed in myself. One thing that's really helpful here is if you normalize their fear, okay? Help them see that their fear of this is a sign of growth. It's a sign that they're stepping out of their comfort zone. They're stretching beyond something that they're used to, right? Whether it be exercising for the first time or changing their diet or being mindful of what's in their food labels or exercising, right? Help them to see that this is normal. It's okay to feel fearful, concerned about what this might look like and how hard it might be, or may they be disappointed if it doesn't work out the way that they want it to. And really, really helpful to kind of use visualization as this like future self exercise to help them connect emotionally with what success could feel like. And even sometimes like, okay, so what failure could feel like? What happens if we try and it doesn't work out? What does that feel like? And what could we do about it? Well, we're going to pivot. We have lots of tools in our toolbox as health coaches to help a client pivot. Maybe it's, that their knee that's hurt them forever is preventing them from moving more. Okay, let's start with just, 5,000 steps a day and see how that goes. Oh, it hurts your knee. Okay, then we're going to pivot. We're going to do something else that gets your blood flowing, gets, your body moving, that maybe isn't as taxing on your knee. Letting a client know that you can pivot if there is some sort of setback and that they don't have to be afraid of failure, because it's a way that we just then take the next step, right? We just pivot, and getting them to understand that the emotional connection to success doesn't necessarily have to be the outcome, but simply just what we learn about ourselves, about the entire path along the way, right? Break the goal down, shrink it to change it into very manageable steps. It reduces the overwhelm, it reduces the self-sabotage, right? So again, maybe the goal is 10,000 steps a day, but let's shrink it down and talk about just 5,000 steps. Okay, great, they executed that. Then you can move on. Oftentimes, shrinking things to a manageable degree kind of lessens the overwhelm. And then you can talk about past successes with them, right? Revisit times where they tried something and they were successful, helping them to kind of like anchor into that evidence that you were worried about doing something before and you were worried that that outcome wouldn't happen, but you did it and it worked out the way that you wanted it to, right? Or maybe it didn't work out the way you wanted it to right away, but eventually you got out of it exactly what you needed in that moment. And so really helping them to understand that there's a way kind of around that fear of failure, and they don't have to protect themselves from the disappointment, because ultimately we will learn no matter what. And we will just further progress through the entire process together, right? That's why they have you as a coach. That's your role as a coach, to help them with next steps as things might change. Okay, next one that we had on our list was limiting beliefs. So I'm just not a healthy person. I've always been overweight. I'm the most unhealthy one in my family. I've always had health struggles, right? It's someone who identifies with all of the negative beliefs about themselves. And we want to use that thought and kind of like reframe it. Okay, asking them like, is that a fact? Is it true? Is it absolutely true that you're not a healthy person? Or is that a story that you've been told from someone else? Or is that a story that you've told yourself because of some reason, right? Is that a story that you have told, somebody else has told you? And how long have you been believing that? Usually these clients who have been believing a story about themselves, whether they made it up themselves or whether somebody else told them that this was true, the longer this story has been told, oftentimes the harder it will be for you to kind of coach them out of it. But really helping them rephrase. Okay, so maybe it's, I'm just not a healthy person, or I've never been a healthy person, and helping them shift, right? That I'm unhealthy or I'm not healthy to, I'm someone that's learning to be well. I'm someone that's learning about myself and maybe what holds me back from being the healthiest version of myself. I'm someone that gets to explore how I can be healthier, right? Helping them to shift with your support, their mindset around health and how they have kind of been in that health and wellness world, right, for quite some time. I mean, I find that when I was personal training clients that were overweight, right, this was deep. It was a tight story that they had maybe even since childhood, right? Like I was always a chubby kid, or I always had weight issues. And sometimes they believe that like, it's just like, this is what it's going to be. This is my struggle. This is what I need to overcome. And oftentimes encouraging them to kind of say like, I haven't done that yet, instead of I can't, right? I haven't been able to figure out how to be a healthy person yet, instead of I'm not a healthy person or I can't be a healthy person. I just haven't got there yet. I haven't been able to get there on my journey. Rewiring that self-talk and their belief system around whatever it is you're trying to get them to achieve is really important. And again, stories that have been reinforced since a young age are going to be a little bit harder to unwrap. Some kids have always been sick since a young age, right? They were always out of school. They were always tired. They were always had gut issues. And a lot of times that identification, that again, story about who they are can be really limiting. But getting them to rewire the story with your help is really important. Evidence-based stacking can be super helpful, right? Track just even small behaviors that are not true to their story. So if their story is, I'm just not a healthy person, find something that they do, find something that a way that they behave that actually isn't true when it comes to being an unhealthy person. Maybe they already filter their water. That a healthy person filters their water. They have an understanding of what healthy water is, right? So getting them to understand that like this isn't true 100% of the time, and therefore we can shift this belief. Really, really powerful. Okay, number 4 is clients who have emotional eating triggers. So these are clients that either can use food as a way to soothe stress, a way to combat boredom, to reward themselves as adults, right? This can look like even alcohol. So, having a glass of wine or a beer to relax from a stressful day, getting through a full work day and, thinking that it's okay, time to put your feet up and have a drink to soothe the stress or because you earned it, right? All of these triggers that can come around with food and drink, and being able to help a client move from identifying either food as something that soothes them or rewards them or, solves boredom, and even like numbing, right? So many people can use food and certain types of food or amounts of food, right, as a way to numb. Some people restrict as a way of control, right? There's typically a emotion connected with a food behavior or trigger. And again, being able to understand as the coach, maybe even before you have a discussion with them about what's going on, right? What is the relationship with the food? What is the trigger that maybe sets it off? And how can you come in and kind of short circuit that and discuss with them about it, right? And so first encouraging them to notice those urges. Okay. So maybe they tell you it's really hard for me to stop eating after dinner, right? Maybe you're trying to encourage them to do a full 12 or 14-hour overnight fast. And you find that the biggest setback or the biggest hurdle to that is getting them to not eat after dinner. Okay. What feels hard about not eating after dinner? Maybe they have cravings. What's the craving for? Primarily sugar. Or some clients will say, like, I don't know, I just need something else. That could be a blood sugar-based issue, right? It certainly could be that they're not stabilizing their blood sugar first thing in the morning. And so now they're craving sugar or carbohydrates after dinner. That's actually very common. But say we've already figured that out and that's not part of what's going on. Maybe it's that when they were single for 10 years, they always sat on the couch and had something to eat after dinner, and it was their way of soothing. Or maybe it's that after dinner, they were always used to having a glass of wine to reward themselves for the day. Maybe it's that after dinner, they were always used to having ice cream as a kid because they were rewarded that when they were quote unquote good kids or when they did something good. So figuring out what the trigger might be, that allows you to help identify where the brain is associating with that particular behavior and then helping them get curious about it, right? What's hard about not reaching for the popcorn when you're watching TV? Or, is it easy to just have a little snack and then stop? Or does it feel like you want to eat a lot? Right? Working with them to list some of those comfort strategies is really important. And what can you do to replace them? So maybe it's that they're used to sitting down, watching something, and having a glass of wine after dinner. Okay, what can we replace that with? Could they take a walk? Could they do some deep breathing exercises? Could they do some mindful meditations? Could they call a friend? Could they journal? Could they make tea? There's all sorts of ways that we can kind of replace one behavior with another without trying to just stop the behavior cold turkey. Yes, it's true. Maybe their nervous system does need some support at the end of the day. But what can we do instead of numbing out with, popcorn in a movie? Or what can we do besides calming the nervous system besides a glass of wine? And getting them to see that there's, yes, certainly an emotional need and an emotional trigger for that behavior. And that's very real, and empowering them to see that and then to change that mindset and behavior around it, right? Helping them to kind of reframe that reward system instead of, I deserve ice cream or I deserve a glass of wine. I deserve rest. I deserve a walk. I deserve some mindful meditation or deep breathing so that I can wake up tomorrow and feel even better than I might if I had ice cream right before bed or a glass of wine too late that interrupts my sleep. Really can be powerful, and kind of using mindful eating, right? Teaching them to eat with full awareness so they can learn to differentiate physical hunger from even emotional hunger, right? Is there a void they're trying to fix? Like I said a few minutes ago, is it to kind of like numb and create this heavy feeling in their body? Is it to sabotage, self-sabotage? Is it to control, right? And allowing kind of some of that differentiation between like true physical hunger. Like, do you feel hungry for food? Or do you feel hungry for comfort? Do you feel hungry for validation? Do you feel hungry for reward? Do you feel hungry for, some sort of soothing? And getting them to kind of see it is actually the first step. And then you can work with them to shift the behavior, but you almost have to first identify some of the patterns, but can be really, really powerful when you're able to do so. Okay, the fifth one that we talked about was kind of this low self-worth. So I don't deserve to be healthy, or I don't deserve to feel good. I don't deserve to be thinner. Coming from health and wellness from a place of low self-worth will oftentimes create lots of energetic barriers to success. I think using guided practices or journal prompts for this can be really, really helpful. And thinking about things like, what would I say to a friend who believed all this, right? I do this a lot with myself. Like, if I had a friend or a client thinking the things or saying the things that I think and say to myself, what would I say to them? Like, oftentimes it's something very profound, very kind, very thoughtful, very supportive. Yet I'm being hardest on myself than I am to anybody else in my life. And being this kind of a coach for your client is really, really helpful in getting them to see, like, would you actually allow a friend to say this to themselves? No? Okay, then why is this your story? Why is this something that you are telling yourself? And how can we connect to some of these values of self-care and what that means to you, or how you have seen this acted out in your life, right? If it's a woman that you're working with, like, how did your mom care for herself? Or how did your mom's self-worth, what did that look like? Was she always criticizing herself? Was she always, looking to be better, looking to be thinner, looking to be prettier? Was she always, talking down on others? What was the story that you saw? And how can we kind of shift how we connect to those values, right? I think celebrating effort and growth around this is really important, right? So showing someone what they're already doing to create higher levels of self-worth. So maybe it's not in their health and wellness, right? Maybe they're kind of sabotaging things there, but helping them to see, okay, well, you are in a very high worth job. You have a very, great career, or you're a great mom. Let's see all of the ways that that's important. What are the ways that kind of serves your highest good? And how does that lead you to a life that feels really fulfilling, and how can we kind of use that evidence to support that high self-worth when it comes to health and wellness, right? Mirror work with affirmations, right? It may sound, kind of a little out there to some clients, but using intentions like, I'm worthy of showing up for myself. I'm worthy of healing my gut. I'm worthy of losing 10 pounds. I'm worthy of feeling a more calm nervous system. I'm worthy of getting to the bottom of my hormonal imbalances, right? Sometimes self-talk is where this all begins, and getting a client unwrapped from their negative self-talk has to come with positive self-talk. And the longer someone continues to positively speak to themselves, the more they'll start to believe it, right? We oftentimes believe negative things about ourselves because we've talked so negatively or believed negative things for so long that gets reinforced. Well, if that can happen, then we can reinforce positive self-talk and positive belief in the same way that the negative happened. And I think that can be sometimes even like literally looking in the mirror and looking straight at yourself, right? Getting a client to say, every morning before you brush your teeth, I want you to look in the mirror and say that you deserve to have a day that's rooted in health and wellness, to make healthy choices, to prioritize your health and wellness, to prioritize your well-being, and simply saying it 3 times. It'll be actually uncomfortable for clients who don't believe this at first. But the more they do it, the more comfortable it will be. And then the more that neuroplasticity starts to form and change. And then they actually start to believe it. And then they start to choose differently. They start to see different opportunities come up, and they start to choose different behaviors. So that can be really powerful. Okay, our last one was kind of like this distraction part of things. And I think this is getting, as I think I mentioned in the last episode, this is getting popular with the introduction of social media and YouTube, and being able to kind of constantly focus on the knowing, right? Constantly focusing on, I know all of the things that I'm supposed to do. I'm gathering all of the data and gathering all of the pieces that I need to enact on, but not actually acting. And they are usually intellectual clients. They know what they're supposed to do. They know what they're supposed to actually, do for the next steps, but they're not acting. And why is that? And that can be because they're almost using the gathering of knowledge as a distraction to actually doing and setting the work in motion, right? And so encouraging these clients like a one-time habit rule where like, we're going to focus on one habit at a time. Let's simply start by getting up in the morning and going for a 10-minute walk. Like, it might be that they're overwhelmed by all of the distraction and all of the information that they've gathered, that they're not actually able to act, right? So oftentimes it's just fear or overwhelm. And so what's one thing that they can do today to take action? And maybe it's, again, getting up, going outside and going for a 10-minute walk. Maybe they have lower cortisol in the morning and you're trying to kind of get that cortisol going. And that can be a really helpful tool to just get things started. Then you build upon that, right? And you're not doing too much educating. You're actually doing a lot of action kind of expectation, right? We need to set what you already know and validate, like, my gosh, you've spent a long time learning this stuff. It seems that you know so much. I can continue to teach you things, but we're not going to see benefit until you start to take action. That's where the true power is, right? Knowing isn't power, acting on it is. And that's where we see a lot of the changes, whether it be in the physical, in the emotional, in the nervous system. Moving them out of that place of fear and overwhelm to a place of action, I think is really, really beneficial. And these clients, again, because they're highly intellectual and they tend to know a lot, really need you to do less education and motivation around empowering them with knowledge. And they need more motivation around encouraging them to act act on things. And sometimes because they are mentally overwhelmed, it's very small, actionable steps building on each other over time that gives them simple wins and saying like, all this knowledge is now resulting in a ton of action that's giving you a lot of success and overall benefit with your health and wellness. Okay. I hope you found all of these tips useful. I think a lot of these, they won't all apply to clients, right? But maybe you have one client that has one or two of these, roadblocks, mental roadblocks to their success. And I hope some of these tips and tricks help you with working with these clients on getting them to move kind of beyond just here's the lab data, here's the protocol that we need to do, and actually making it all work, right? Because ultimately, the clients that get benefit from the things that we know work are the ones that are seeing the success. They're the ones that are moving the needle. And then that snowball just tends to build. Now they take one more step and we get one more layer deeper into their healing journey. They then tell someone else how wonderful they feel. Then that ripple effect starts to happen. You're able to help and reach more people because they're talking about it. So I hope these tips have been helpful. Let us know if there's anything else around mindset shifts and limiting beliefs, behaviors, all of that we can help support your clients on. And we'll look forward to talking soon. Thanks so much for tuning back into the Integrative Health Coach Success Podcast, and we'll talk to you all soon.